Hey guys, today I put together a video for you on dealing with Ethernet cable, specifically RJ45's and crimping them to make your own Ethernet cable. Most of you will obviously already be familiar with this process. I'm also going to dive into Keystone jacks, the wall outlets that you sometimes can see, and how those work, and I have a couple of the actual wall outlets themselves as well. So there may be some tips and tricks in here if you're already familiar with the subject. If you're new to networking, you're going to spend a lot of time getting to know Ethernet. Obviously, it's one of your main mediums for transporting data, along with optical, fiber optic cables, and wireless modes of transmission. But you're going to be most familiar with Ethernet when you're first getting into networking. So with that being said, what you're looking at here is just your standard Cat5 cable. It's got a kind of pre-done end on the end that I'm showing you here, and then the other end, which we're going to play around with, has nothing. It's cut off on that end. Hoping the webcam picks everything up okay. I turned off the autofocus. I have a DSLR, but I need to get a good tripod to mount it on so I can get some better video for you guys, sync that up with the audio. So on the actual screen recording, you can see I've got the wiring layout there. Feel free to check that out if you're not already familiar. When I make this end, I'm going to be doing it in a T568 Bravo standard. That's what you're going to see more commonly, at least what I've come across more commonly for your standard for a straight through cable. Straight through versus crossover, obviously straight through is the same on both sides. Crossover, you can see on the diagram the pins are kind of flip-flopped, and you use one versus the other when you're trying to connect different types of devices. So your typical host to a switch, for example, you're going to use a straight through, whereas maybe a router to a router you'd use crossover. Now these days most devices have auto sensing ports, and they have the ability to change where they transmit and receive on as far as pins, so you don't have to worry about it as much. But if you ever run into a situation where they are not syncing up at all and it's just acting very abnormal, and you're trying to connect two like devices, there's a good chance that perhaps one or both of them are not capable of auto sensing their ports and adjusting where they're transmitting and receiving. So don't take it for granted. You still have to keep it in mind, because I've been hit by that once or twice. It doesn't take long to not forget that when you get nailed by that, because you take quite a bit of time trying to troubleshoot some higher level issues when it turns out to be just the cable. So with that being said, this pre-built end that you're looking at here, it's got kind of a shielding going over the RJ45, RJ45 being the name for the connector here. This is a Cat5 Ethernet cable. There are other standards, Cat6. I'll cover those in a little bit briefly as far as different connectors or how you have to handle that differently. For the most part, it's the same game though, just a different cable. Like I said, I hope the camera's picking this all up okay. I won't be able to see till after the recording. So what I'm going to do is actually steal this shielding that they have on theirs, and there's nothing too fancy about theirs. Obviously, it's probably machine done and has a high quality to it, but nothing that we can't recreate ourselves. And in fact, there's looks like there's a cut in the sheathing around the cable there, so not even that good of an end here. But regardless, let's go ahead and let's take that right off of there. And the reason I'm doing that is because you can buy these in bulk and you can make your cables more secure using them. There's less chance that the RJ45 right by the end of the cable is going to get messed up if you have these covering it and kind of protecting it. So I'm going to put this on our end. All I'm going to do, I just slid it backwards off the cable. All I'm going to do is put it right back on the opposite way. And this is how you would start out if you're going to use these. You're going to put it on the cable before you start to actually put the RJ45 on there. So with that on there and out of the way, next thing you're going to want to do is grab a pair of crimpers. I've got these Gerber cable dogs that I reviewed in another video, and you're going to want to strip the sheathing off of the cable. So I'm going to just carefully kind of give it a quick spin. They make good tools. I don't have any to show you, but they make good tools that actually their only purpose is stripping the sheathing off. Little yellow guys, usually with like a hole for your finger, you can just kind of spin them around and they'll strip it right down. And those are pretty nice, but depending on what you have on hand, sometimes just a pair of crimpers or even a knife will get the job done. You can do any of this with a knife except for the crimping portion, obviously. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of break the sheathing and pull it off of there. You can see we've exposed the pins now, the individual 8 pins inside of this Cat5. And you've got 4 sets: orange, brown, blue, and green. And in the middle, this one has kind of a divider here. Some of them will have, this is unshielded twisted pair, they call it, because these are the twisted pairs and it's not shielded. The shielded twisted pairs will usually have like an aluminum foil going around the outside, and that's designed to provide a little bit more protection for EMI, electromagnetic interference. So if you run your cables near electrical cables, lights, other Ethernet cables, there's a chance where they can crosstalk, or you can see some signal degradation with this unshielded twisted pair. With the shielded twisted pair, it kind of provides a little more security for that, but it's also kind of a bit more of a pain to work with when you're trying to crimp them. Obviously, making your own cables is a lot cheaper, more cost efficient than buying them pre-made, and because you can buy them in like 1,000-foot boxes or 500-foot boxes. So I cut that middle divider off. You'd want to do the same thing with any shielding. And what I'm going to do now, I've got them split up, as you can see. What I'm going to do is just kind of start separating the pins. And on the screen, that it doesn't say T568, but the 568 Bravo standard that you can see there is what I'm shooting for my layout. So I'm just kind of organizing them in a way that they'll kind of line up how I want them for that standard. And obviously you kind of untwist them to the left to get them to come apart. You can even twist them farther than you can see if it gives you a little bit more room and flexibility to be able to move them around. So what I'm doing is orange, white, orange. I'm sorry, a lot of people, how people say this can vary. I've always been orange, white, orange, green, white, blue, blue, white, green, brown, white, brown guy, but a lot of people say that that's hard to understand when they say it like that. So some of you may understand better as white, orange, orange, white, green, blue, white, blue, green, brown, white, brown. So you'll probably hear me go back to my old method when I'm calling this out, so I apologize. But so I've got them how I want them: orange, white, orange, orange, white, green, blue, white, blue, green, white, brown, brown. And you can see that it's kind of messy still, and there's no way I'm going to get this to fit in an RJ45. So one of the best tricks that I've learned throughout the years is kind of pinch it down at the bottom where they are lined up exactly how you want. That gives you the ability to kind of mess with them up top, and they're not going to unorganize themselves and get out of order. And go ahead and take your other hand, kind of bring them all together and kind of grab them, and then just start bending them. They're not going to come apart on your break or snap. And if you kind of bend them, kind of up and down and back and forth a little bit, and kind of pull away from your hand that has them pinched together where how you want them lined up, you can see that I got them to line up pretty nicely here. It looks like down at the bottom there's a couple colors that are still kind of not playing nicely, and my blue and green just crossed, which they should not do. So the way to combat that is, when you're first kind of spreading them apart, make sure that you have them opened up and organized pretty neatly at the bottom. So I've got them how I want them now. What I'm going to go ahead and do, you can see they're kind of scraggly up at the top, but that's okay, because what I'm going to go ahead and do is grab the pair of crimpers or scissors or whatever you've got, and go ahead and cut the top half off. And that's probably going to be a little longer than I want. As you do this more, you'll get a feel for what you're trying to shoot for as far as length goes. But I've got them now. You can see they're on a straight line. That's kind of important, because when they're going into these RJ45's, they're going to hit the end. And if one is a lot longer than the others, it's going to hit it first and cause them to start backing up and maybe not making it all the way. So I'm going to, without even letting go of the pinched portion, I'm going to start sliding it into this RJ45. And they're going to go ahead and, if they cooperate, and kind of fall into the slots that are in that RJ45 for each one of the 8 pins. And it's going to start getting a little bit tighter. I got the sheathing in there. Sometimes that'll get caught up on you. Push in there as far as you can, and you'll be able to see from the side, from the 2 sides, you can kind of see the pins are in there all the way. You can sort of see it from the end, but it's kind of like looking at fish in water. It's kind of hard to see if the pins are all the way at the end. So once you've got it into where you want it, Try not to mess with it too much so they don't come loose. Take your crimpers again. Go ahead and slide in there. I always give it one last good push in there while I'm beginning to crimp, just to make sure that they all held. And crimp it down. So what that did was the crimper has these kind of pins of their own sticking down that shove these metal pins down into the different wires in there, and they physically go through or go into the wire, so that obviously these are then extensions of those pins, and these gold plated kind of conductors, if you will, are what touch into the female side when you plug this cable in, and that's how you get your data to go back and forth as far as electrical signals. So that is a completed RJ45. Again, just pinching the pins once you get them lined up the way you want, or the wires, and then kind of working them and kind of pulling them out a little bit is going to get them to cooperate a little bit more with you. For Cat6 cable, the sheathing is bigger, and so these RJ45s that are designed for Cat5, because there is a difference. You have to, if you want to use them, it's kind of rough, you're better off buying the right thing, but you need to kind of use a pair of pliers and pinch down on the sheathing to get it to narrow out and fit in, or else it won't want to go in there. They also make RJ45s with openings at the end. They're called easy RJ45s, and they have a special set of crimpers for those, and basically you run the pins straight out the end through the openings once they get lined up in there, and it makes it easier. You don't have to cut them right on a straight line and keep them perfectly even. When they come out the other end, those special crimpers that I mentioned, you then use them to crimp this RJ45, and it cuts the extra pins off. So it saves you a little bit of time. I'm personally not a fan. I've heard a few instances where they can short each other out because there's an open end, and they can sometimes touch each other on accident, depending on how it cuts them. And then all you have to do is just go ahead and slide your protecting kind of rubber cover here back up the cable. Now this one seems to be more specifically designed for that other connector that we pulled it off of. It doesn't want to play very nicely, but even this is a little bit better than we had before, because it gives you a little more protection down here at the weak point where this RJ is going to maybe get bent a little bit more. But you'll just want to make sure that you buy these covers, if you buy these, for the correct size of RJ45 and cable and whatnot, because it really should come all the way up to where this release pin is, or this release lever for the RJ. So that's essentially creating an RJ45, crimping your own cable in a nutshell, and being able to kind of knock out your own cables from a big spool, be it for a home project or at the job. You're going to need to be able to know how to do that on the fly in any sort of a networking role you're in. Obviously you'd want to go ahead and test this, throw this on a cable tester, make sure everything went well. I've seen instances where you have to crimp it again. Sometimes the pins didn't take all the way, or various other issues. You want to make sure you didn't swap any pins. So you don't want to just take this cable and put it right into production unless you're pretty confident in your abilities. So alright, so that's an RJ45. Moving on from there, the other things I've got to show you are a couple of Keystone jacks. And let me switch over to another tab here on the screencast. Here's some, since we're on the topic of RJ45s for a second again, if you look on the screen, here's CDW's website, and you can search, for this search I used RJ45 connector, and they're going to have pre-built patch cables and whatnot, but if you if you search, you can find they sell in bulk these RJ45s. This, for example, is a pack of 50, and it'll run you about $17. But when you see that one patch cable here is $6, you can see that, and that has two of them on it alone, you can see that you make your money back pretty quickly, and especially when you look at pre-made cables versus spool of cable. So Amazon, any sort of electronics store is probably going to sell these in bulk. Just search around for the best deal. Moving on to the Keystones, you can see these are a little bit more pricey. They're running on CDW for about $7, $8, $7, $8, $9, $10 a pop, depending on what kind you get. These are going to be more for your business end projects, or maybe a one-time initial install at your house if you want to put ports on your wall that are easy to access that go back to a comms closet. The two examples I have here in front of the camera are unique in their own way, and there's a bunch of different ways that these are built, but they get the same general idea. The general idea is you take the pins from the Cat5, and let me actually go ahead and kill off what we just did. These RJs, you cannot use them again once you crimp them down. You might be able to if you get all the pins to pop up, but they're pretty much a lost cause after you use them once. So I'm gonna go ahead and open this back up again just for the example of the Keystone jacks. I don't think I'm gonna complete one because I'm not gonna. I may. I don't have a good set of punch down. I don't have a good punch down tool, I should say, right here in front of me. So it's gonna be a little more difficult. I've done it before with knives and Gerbers, whatnot, but it's a bit more challenging. So the general idea here is you have a female port, and you're going to go ahead and put these pins into these individual slots on the back, and it basically is going to patch them over to the front essentially. So now you have a clean interface for this cable to be able to plug other cables into. So this is going to be more for your patch cabling, stuff that goes from the switch, or rather from the patch panel to a wall port. This is the kind of cabling that isn't going to move in your building, right? You can repatch this on the back end. You can make new cables on the front end for the user or whatever's tying into this port. But when you put this cable in place, typically it's not going to move. It's going to stay there. All right, so because this is probably a little complicated to understand if you've never seen these before, I'm going to go ahead and show you what they plug into. And this is just a 2-port Keystone faceplate, and it's white. They make them in different colors to match your projects. There's some screws in there that you can see that for driving them into the actual back end of this thing. But the idea is you can latch these guys in the port here. Hold on, fighting this one a little bit here. There you go. So this is more of what you're expecting to see in a business environment or maybe a house that's set up well. And that's what these Keystones I was just talking about. This is how they come into play. So this would be statically in place on a wall, and you could put a cable into it. A small patch cord or something, and then run that to a computer. On the back end, you'd probably have the cable going into an actual patch panel with a bunch of ports in one area, and you could repatch those to different switches or whatever you need to do. So it's a very easy modular way in a business to set up some initial cabling where you know you're going to need cabling, even if you're not sure what it's going to go to just yet. So that is how that works. Now, I'll show you the last step to one of these. With the cable run, and for this particular back plate, you basically have to run the cable through these holes on the back. They make some where if you're going to bring cable up through the ceiling or up, from the floor coming up, you can actually cut out or peel away pieces underneath. It'll make like a clean little cutout that you can then run your Ethernet up through. But pretty much you're going to go ahead and put this plate on there. You're going to actually screw this back plate into the wall first using the screw mounts there. Or you can pre-stage them if you have them sized out, and then kind of slide this on there and lock it in place. But you're going to put this faceplate on there and use the screws that I showed you a second ago and lock that part in place on the front. And there you have it. That's kind of your final Keystone wall plate layout. So getting back to the actual Keystone itself, so I can try and wrap this video up. Man, they lock in there pretty well once they're in there. To set these up, like I said, there's a couple different types, and they come in different colors. Coloring is a whole different discussion, but basically you may want to use orange, for example, this one here for voice or data, and then use a different color for something else, for ease of understanding where everything is cabled. But anyway, the different kinds of Keystones, they all have the same general idea. They've got a coloring layout there for you to follow as far as what pins you put where, and it's going to show you your T568 Alpha or Bravo standards. It's going to show them both depending on what you want to do, and it's just usually going to be labeled Alpha or Bravo, and there's going to be one Alpha and one Bravo for the top half, one Alpha and one Bravo for the bottom half, or sides, whichever way you want to look at it. It doesn't really matter, because it shows you how they're laid out pretty cleanly here in the picture. So for the Bravo, you're not going to be able to see it in the camera very likely, but for the Bravo on the top half, I would do brown and then white brown. For the top right side, I would do orange and then white orange. Bottom would be green, and then blue, white, blue. So what you do is you'd run your cable into this Keystone, and you would, it's tricky to do and try and keep it on camera, but you get your different wires to lay down in these little slots there. So you can see I kind of got brown and white brown to lay out in there, and then you would the next ones it looks like are orange and then white orange. So you would want to do orange and then white orange. You get the general idea, right? You're going to do that for both sides. And when you get them all laid out exactly how you want them, let's see if I can get them to cooperate enough to show you a final what it should look like. For the Bravo on the bottom, we're going to do white, blue, and then blue down at the end. Come on, green. Go to your home. Okay. The last thing there really is to do once you get them lined up the way they're supposed to be is to use the backer plate for this particular type and push it down as hard as you can onto the Keystone, and you can use various tools that'll help you with that, but you're going to likely want to cut off the excess potentially first if you can get them to sit in there nicely, because the excess pins have to go. Sometimes when you punch these down, depending on the type of Keystone, you can kind of just break them off right there, but this is the general idea. If you don't look at the extra slack on the pins there, you can see how once this punches them down and locks them into those pins, then you've got a Keystone connected to a Cat5 cable in place. The other way you can do it as you go, and I've done that before, is let me get part of this Gerber cable dog. You can get a punch down tool. I'm going to try and get the right adapter here. You can get a punch down tool, and as you go, keep in mind where your cutting side is. You can use it's going to be better with an impact one or a high quality one, but you can punch these pins down into the Keystone one at a time, and that's going to lock them in there and hold them in place a lot better. And if you had a good impact punch down tool and you kind of angled it just right, you could get all these extra pins cut off too, the extra slack there on those. So you can see, you probably can't see in the video, but they actually have penetrated the pins that are in there now, and those pins are what connected obviously to the connectors on the front side. But you do that for all 8 and then put the backer on it, and then you're good to go. A lot of these different Keystones come with different features. For example, this particular brand, which was Sigma Max, they come with these little wall plate labelers for PC and VoIP or phone, and they have mini ones that you can put over the front of the faceplate of the Keystone, so you can see that this would still show through the wall plate, and you can see that it's labeled as a phone port. So if your end users do any of the cabling and you want to make sure they do it correctly, plug things in where they need to, you can label them like this. You can also label the wall ports themselves, obviously. But that's the general idea. This other one is similar concept. Like I said, they're all pretty much the same, except for this one, it closes down itself right on the pins, the connector pins, and it has its own little channel with the wiring layout, and it shows you kind of how to put them in there, and they just kind of slide right in like a little guide, and then they sit down inside of there, and you can then lock the keystone down and close it, and then your cable's going to come right out the back side. So this one is white. Again, they all pretty much come in different colors. So that is your overview on Keystones, how they work, and as well Crimping and RJ45. Hopefully you picked up a tip or trick here. If you're already familiar with the content, hopefully you learned something if you're not. And thanks for watching.